We're back for another podcast. Good evening,
What?
Mason.
Good evening, Blake.
How's the last 2 weeks been for you, sir?
Oh, it's been lovely. Living the dream,
Yeah.
stressed,
Stressed?
overworked.
Oh
Yeah,
man, don't get stressed. But that's like entrepreneur life. That comes with the territory.
pretty much. Pretty much.
Cool, man. So we got a really jam-packed episode. I was at ISC West in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I want to give a quick little update on LVN per your request. So I want to talk about the two main things we're doing right now, and that's the fiber scholarship. So that's where we're doing training and mentorship, as well as CFOT, which is the FOA fiber scholarship, fiber certification. So we're going to be giving that away to 6 aspiring technicians, and yeah, it's exciting. We've got 9 applicants so far. We want to get some more, probably get about 20, and then they have to complete Fiber U training in order to be eligible. So that's coming down the pipeline. Are you excited for that, Mason?
I am pumped.
Cool. The next thing we have is the charity project. So we're going to Warminster, Pennsylvania,
Whoop,
and
whoop.
yeah, so we actually have it's going to be upwards of 30 to 50 people, perhaps.
Wow.
Yeah, I just talked to Ray Klein of Libertas Consulting, and he said
Ray who?
Ray
Klein.
Klein.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
Ray Klein. And there might be a lot of people there. We're actually turning it into a meetup. So if you want to come, we're just going to have a ton of people there.
That's awesome. Are
Yeah,
we
so
still doing the Atlanta meetup?
so the Atlanta meetup was going to be at September 2, but we didn't want to do 2 in September. So we just we're postponing the Atlanta meetup probably until it's a little bit cooler in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. That
So
makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it makes sense because we're asking for sponsorship money. We don't want to like ask for 2 sponsorship, rounds in the month of September.
Yeah.
That seems a little kind of asking for too much. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's so we're doing the Ben Wilson Senior Center. A bunch of people are coming. We're going to install some access control stuff, surveillance, structured cabling. We can do some donations of like PCs, monitors, and printers, all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, those are the 2 main things that are happening at LVN for the next couple months.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
super
so
exciting.
yeah, so I was at ISC West, and if you're watching the video, I have a BIT Inc. shirt on that I've been wearing all week, and I wore it at ISC West, and like you've got some fans like around the country, especially at Phoenix.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah, Brian's a cool guy.
Did he send you a text message? Because he was like, "Hey
Yes.
man," he's like, "Hey man, can I take a picture of you wearing that shirt?"
Yeah. He sent me a text message. When I saw that, I saw you post on Instagram about ISC West, and I saw you were wearing the shirt,
Yeah.
and then I was instinctively like, okay, I hope Brian sees him. Like, I hope that connection happens. And then when I found out, I was laughing pretty hard about it.
So you had
So,
nothing to do with like sending Brian my way,
no,
he
no, zero.
because it was when the show ended on Tuesday, and like everybody's flooding out into the casino, and he just happened to see me. He was like, "Hey man," I was like, "Why the hell are you wearing a BIT shirt?" I'm like, "Who are you?" I was like, I'm Blake with Low Voltage Nation." He's like, "Oh, you're from the podcast. That's you." I'm like, "Yeah, it's me. What's up?" But yeah, so he was like, he wanted to take a picture. I took a selfie, posted on Instagram, and then I posted on LinkedIn, and yeah, it was a hit.
Yeah, he's a man. He's a good guy. I like working with those guys over there. So, but it
Yeah.
was interesting. He shared that podcast, I know, to a lot of people that we did the last time with access control. So
Is that why we had so many listeners? Because I barely
probably,
promoted it. I forgot to put it
probably.
on LinkedIn, so maybe I should do that.
Yeah, you should probably put on LinkedIn. That was definitely a LinkedIn heavy podcast for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we
Brian
talk.
did. That's probably why we got views. So thank you,
Yeah,
Brian.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just for the people that don't know about Phoenix, briefly explain like what your relationship is and what they do.
So Phoenix is, if you know Brevo, so Brevo is like an access control cloud platform. Phoenix is like the better version of that. So
Oh,
they're a Mercury OEM. So you buy Mercury panels from them, and then they have a cloud-based access control platform that is just bonkers good. They have some things
Bonkers.
that that will need some improvement on the UI, but the back end of it is great. If you hate Linnell, you'll love Phoenix. I'll put it that way. Even if you
Okay.
love Linnell, you'll love Phoenix. So
Is Linnell Mercury? Do you know?
yeah, Linnell's Mercury.
That's
Linnell's
what I
kind of
thought.
like they in many ways are the Pelco of the industry. Where if
Okay.
you know anything about Pelco, Pelco is the big HD coax camera company, and then they faded into existence. However you would pronounce that, because they didn't stay up with the times. Because are we
Mm,
installing a ton of coax cameras anymore, Blake? The
not
answer
that.
is no.
No. We installed Balin's on coax for
Yep.
cameras. That's about all I know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Comcast installs coax. I'm sure they do a lot on the
Yeah, they
ISP
do
side.
that. Dish does that as well. I'm
You
very familiar.
used to work for Dish, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Look at
Man,
me now,
okay.
Mom.
Yeah. Yeah, so Phoenix, great company,
Mhm.
great people over there. They had a presence at ISC West, another company that we've been keeping an eye on. You've been doing a lot of work with. I don't know if you've installed any Ava security stuff yet. Have you installed it yet or
We
what?
haven't. We're rolling it out at our one of our first installs, and we're installing, going to be installing more and more of it. It's a good system. They did admit that they didn't have the best booth there, which was
It
comical with how
it
much money
was.
they have backing them.
It was funny because I kind of saw them out of the corner of my eye when I like walked the land
Mhm.
initially just to kind of get a feel for it, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, there's Ava. I know Ava, kind of.
Hmm.
And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna find Ava after I did like my whole scan of the
Yeah.
territory, and I couldn't fucking find him. I was like, where's this booth? It's like in the back corner. It's like a little like fold out desk and like a laptop.
Well, no one apparently wanted to really go to it because I was talking to one of my sales reps, and he's like, "Dude, no one's gonna show up to that. Like, we're not gonna put money into that."
That's what he was
So,
telling me. Yeah.
what I was told is next year they're gonna go all out with it. So,
Yeah, I think it was a good move on Ava's part because it was like somebody said 60%, roughly 60% on the vendor side
yeah,
that showed up. So I don't know. It was interesting. I don't have a baseline to really go off of because I've never been to ISC West, but it seemed like it was fun. It was a good it was a good experience. I knew a ton of people there, and that was just kind of
it looked
weird because
really slow from the videos, to be honest with you.
which video feeds did you look at? There were a handful. Like PDK had like a whole thing, and then
I
Page.
just saw some on LinkedIn, and usually, like, it's hard to walk. Like, it's difficult usually to walk in there.
Oh,
Like, you can't, like, to get from booth to booth, it, like, you kind of get in line and just kind of slowly mosey from one to the next because it's just so tightly packed in there.
yeah,
And that clearly didn't look like that was the case.
yeah, yeah. What I usually do is I make things look like really happening. I go
Yeah.
like close up on stuff,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
I'll find like a gaggle of like attractive females and like do like zoom in on them. Make it look fun. Um, that's a whole nother story on my other company,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was interesting seeing some of the reports, especially from like IPVM. I don't know if you saw like what they're kind of getting to with the wristbands that were like
Mhm.
from like Alibaba. They were like they're
Yeah.
endangering all the attendees by having
Oh,
this cheap Chinesium junk.
I saw that.
It's just like, man, they'll do anything to get a clickbait headline. It's funny.
I like IPVM, but sometimes I feel that they go like a little too hard, but then they go soft on other things, and it just like software as a service, for example. In every business, you need some type of recurring revenue stream. Not in every business, but in the business that we're in, recurring revenue is so important to the livelihood of keeping support staff there, and
Right.
it feels like they're just always taking a dump on that. Like, software as a service is such a bad thing, but yet they have a subscription model for their website.
That's their model. They
That's
have
their
over
entire model.
15,000 active members or paying members, and like that's how they make money.
Yeah. And then they kind of poop on everyone else. And I get, they're like, well, your data is locked up with them. I'm like, yeah, but like, if you have a server that's on prem and it fails, your data is gone. So
Right.
if you have it off prem and it's duplicated and it's in different states or different countries, like, isn't that better?
I
I
don't know.
don't know.
That's a huge argument: on-prem versus cloud versus hybrid.
Yeah.
We don't need to get into that one. That's a big topic.
That's next week.
That's next week. We need to bring on some guests. So I'm going to throw that out there. If anybody wants to get on the podcast, maybe we'll do it like
Brian.
two from now. Let's get Brian on.
Yeah, Brian from Phoenix on. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think it would be.
You'd have to get a better microphone though.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. I think people are used to this shitty audio at this point.
No, we are different, Blake. We are.
That is a good. Thank you for correcting me, Mason.
Yep.
You're 100% correct.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. So ISC West, there was a ton of people that I knew there. One in particular, or two in particular, are the access control, kind of like the king of access control is what some people call him. John Laurie, he was
the
there.
The
Godfather of access. Yeah. So we were hanging out in the inside lounge with Leo Des. It was so cool because he had a whole meeting room, and it was like he had cupcakes and the cookies and the coffee and espresso, and so I'm just chilling there with John Laurie. He's like in his shorts because he had to catch a flight, and he was just like, and I was like, it was awesome, and it's just like having to be around those people because they're such like icons in the industry. I mean, it's not a big industry, but
very small.
John Laurie, he ran firmware for Mercury for like 10 years. The founder of ProWatch, sold it to Honeywell. Like he's a big deal. And then Leo Des knows everybody in access control. So connecting with them in person was really cool. I felt honored. Another cool company, Page Datacom. They were there. They had they had video stream. They had like a photo booth where you can get like professional headshots. They kind of went all out with it. So that was pretty cool seeing them. Windy City Wire, talked to Control 4. I've never really done anything with Control 4, but I know that you use a lot of Control 4.
Not a lot in terms of other people, but a lot for us. So.
A lot for more than me is because you and Josh Leviton is like that's my kind of. I've seen it once in the wild, and then I hear you guys talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's neat when you see. The cool thing is Control 4. Or home automation, if done properly, makes life easier for the end user. And that so the interesting thing about all this, I'll go on a slight tangent.
Go for it.
Is people, it has such a bad name because integrators do such a piss poor job and sometimes of integrating it. So you see all these people, they're like, well, I had Control 4, or I don't want home automation because it's too complicated, or there's too many problems with it. And it just comes back to everything in this industry. A handful of people or a majority of people do it incorrectly or half-assed, and it makes it so difficult to sell for the rest of us. Right. Because when the system does work well, it should be basically magical. Like you walk into your house and stuff just happens, and you can press one button and just everything clicks on and off. And then the cool thing is when you set delays between things, so it looks like it's like a little teeny tiny process happening throughout the house. Yeah, it's cool.
I love it.
So, but it's that drive to do more and better and make little complex programs to make other people's lives easier. You just see all the time where someone goes, oh, we're going to sell you a $20,000 smart lighting package. And the smart lighting package is the fact that they can turn it on from their phone. What? Like, okay, we're going to sell you a smart lighting package. We're going to make a couple of lighting scenes so that you could turn all the lights on and all the lights off. Wow. Amazing. Mind blown. Not 20 grand worth. Sorry.
No.
I can turn on from my phone. Not worth 20 grand.
I can buy a 2-pack of bulbs at Walmart for like $30 and accomplish the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but we're getting more and more in depth with it and getting better at it. It's been the interesting thing about the industry in particular is they give you kind of a starting point and then they say, okay, go from here. But the issue is there doesn't seem to be a lot of good, like, I don't know, do this and like here's a lot of cool ideas that you could come up with. It seems more along the lines of here's some basics and we hope you take this and really run with it and try to make some complex things. And I think that is what has made the industry a little challenging to a degree, because a lot of integrators are doing the simplistic things, because the owner may go, okay, I'm going to focus on the financials of the company or the project management of the company. And then who's ever in charge of programming goes, well, I don't want this to break. So I'm just going to keep it super simple so that nothing breaks on me. And I'm going to walk away. And I'm only going to install things that are supported first party, and which I agree with because that's kind of what we do. But
Yeah.
as far as the more advanced programming, like that stuff takes time, and you have to talk to the homeowner and get to feel them and understand them and know what they're going to want to do. I feel them, whatever.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know
I
what I
kind of
mean?
took pause on that.
You,
I know. Sorry.
you gotta understand what the homeowner wants to accomplish. And so what we're working on right now is creating a whole brochure of different ways that we can integrate it within your life, and different basically macros of like,
Mm.
here's some examples of how we could automate the system, so you're getting a good understanding of what the customer is visualizing in their head, because they have no idea what it can do. They have no idea that you can have the colors change in the house when you turn a light switch on based on time of day, and the different ramp rates of the lights. Like when you walk in your bathroom at night, maybe let's take the lights up to 20% in over 10 seconds. That way it doesn't hurt your eyes. Or do some LED underglow lighting by the kick plate in the cabinets. It's details like that where we don't see anyone else doing it, so we think we have a good spot to really hit it and hit it out of the park. So
Wow. So you're putting together like a nice package that shows all those little
yeah,
things that you can. That's really cool, man. I
yeah,
love it. Details matter. Good job.
hmm
Cool. Yeah. Just to wrap things up on ISC West, I had a great time. I was in and out too quickly. I'm excited for next year, though. I want to be a little more intentional on some goals, set some objectives, like interview people. Hopefully, you'll be there to like we can walk around, and like jam out together and like look at stuff and play with all the shiny new toys that work and don't work.
yeah,
I didn't want to like go to like every single booth because it's exhausting, like talking to people and pretending like you're interested. It's
yeah.
there's just so much. I wanted to hit the people that not hit the people, but I wanted to speak with the people that I already knew and just kind of say hello.
The thing that is very, I don't know, almost frustrating about out there is you get inundated with so much information, and then
Right.
the issue becomes is because every sales rep of every company is just basically has a sales pitch in their head. No matter who you are, they won't ask anything about your business. They honestly don't care about your business. They're just like, "Oh, do you want to? Are you protecting the Pentagon? Because that's what we do. So it's so nice to meet you. These are fiber armor things that you can bury in the ground that will keep explosions from damaging them when tanks drive over them." And you're like, yeah, this isn't really my business vertical.
Right. Let me scan your badge real quick. Like, no,
Yeah, yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm good, man. Oh, I hate when they like you would do like the little like like karate hand movements. Like, can I scan? Nope, 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 I'm not gonna get my badge. Yeah. Then you get inundated with like the next month of just shitty emails. And like, all right, spam,
Unsubscribe.
spam,
Unsubscribe.
spam. Yeah.
Cool. ISC West, baby.
Whoop,
Good
whoop.
times. All right, let's kick it over to you, Mason. You had a
Yeah.
couple of things you wanted to talk about on the project management side.
Yeah.
So, what software are you working with? What do you got going on?
So I reached out to a fairly large integrator out in Vegas a couple weeks ago. I might have talked about it on the last podcast, but wanted to kind of get an idea of a company that's 15 times the size of mine, what they do, and learned a lot. So we started looking at. He recommended to get more organized on documentation and whatnot, which we're working towards right now. But
Mm-hmm.
the main thing was to get better at project management, from the accounting slash inventory side, which I've been wanting to do, but I really had no idea where to look. So he sent me over to iPoint, which iPoint is an interesting software. So if you're in the AV industry or the integrated industry, you probably, one of the reasons why you're listening to this podcast is because you're within this industry. We deal with something that is very different from the rest of the trades, in my opinion. We're integrating with so many different things, and we're not an electrician where all we're doing is electrical. Like we may be integrating with some plumbing stuff and AV and
Right.
furnaces, HVAC, and so proposals can get very complicated. We're not just doing basic invoices or basic quotes. We're doing these very complex uh, invoices and I mean not invoices but proposals. And so
Mm-hmm.
their iPoint is supposedly the software that can do A to Z. So they can do your CRM, you're bringing syncing with QuickBooks fairly well, your inventory, your proposal, project management, email reminders. I mean, it can do everything, and their pricing for us to get started for a company of my size was roughly like 5 grand, I think. And
Five
so,
grand up front
yep. And then there's like a monthly of like 400 or 500 a month. And
for
so,
how many seats, how many users for that
uh,
much?
five, I believe. It was
Okay,
roughly five.
I got you. Okay, go ahead.
So we were looking at it and on the surface, you go, okay, this is a pretty good software. The downside was it seemed a little outdated on the user interface side, but you kind of have to step back and go, this is a very niche software. So they
Right.
don't have a ton of development on it. The issue that I started running into is it's a little complex, which is fine, and I get that I need to learn these things. I mean, that's my job is taking complex items and simplifying them for end users. But the the thing was is it was built on what's called FileMaker. And if you're familiar with FileMaker, FileMaker is has some old roots, and it's not very snappy. It's kind of like an old database program
Right.
software. And so, they had mentioned to me, "Hey, this is something you have to host on your own equipment," which I was a little taken back by. It's like, all right, that's I guess okay. We'll see how it goes. So I was like, is there any way we could set up a remote instance so I can just kind of get a feel for the system before I like spend $5,000 and then money on a server? And so they set that up and I got into it. And remote is awful. I mean, it was taking 15 seconds to add one line item to a proposal.
Okay.
They said, hey, this is going to be resolved once you get it on site. Don't worry about it. We have companies with literally hundreds of employees that use this. And, I believe him because I talked to the guy out of Vegas and this is what his company uses and it works for them. But what I kind of started realizing is okay, this whole software is built upon a foundation that is probably not the right foundation to build upon. So I'm a little concerned with having something on prem and all the security flaws that come with that. And if they're quote unquote managing the server, what are they really doing? They get it, they install it, they say open up all these ports on your router, which I'm like, ah.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, I hope nothing ever sneaks in. So so then we started looking at Projects 360, and so that's pronounced Projx 360 and spelled out, and they're built in the cloud, and it's not as complex or integrated as iPoint, but they've only been at it for 3 years, and the actual user interface is remarkably better. It's faster, and it has about 95% of what you actually need. And so we've really started taking a look at that. We're working on getting our inventory set up. But the idea is that we'll be able to create a proposal within their software and then move that. If that gets signed off on, the customer can then sign off on it online. And then that will automatically complete the proposal and push it into a project state. We can then push that invoice that we create will automatically get pushed over to QuickBooks, and then that way everything matches up on the accounting side, and then we can push this project into a project management state where then we can check our inventory levels within the software. If we need to put out some POs to get equipment moving in, track those POs, and it allows us to bring all that stuff together into inventory and warehouse, and then have technicians clock all their time on that same application, do reporting, um, and basically everything in one. So then we can run a report and go, okay, how much money are we making on this job? Realistically, how much money, how did we quote it? And we're going to be able to track everything down to every RJ45 we install, every F connector. I mean, it's going to be really nice for us at the end of the day, because I actually know how much money we're making, because I can track down to the 20-cent connector that we're crimping on a cable. So
Right.
there's obviously some growing pains with all this, but overall, I'm really happy with how it's going so far. And Doug's a really great guy to work with. He's the owner of the company. He has an AV company of like 27 years, and he's a CEDIA like top 10, I think, integrator. So he has some weight behind him, and
Douglas Greenwald is
Yep.
his name. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting guy. So he has some weight behind his name, and the fact that he developed this in house with a developer, and then this is in 3 years. He's gotten this far in 3 years. It's fairly impressive, to say the least.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to the future of this product. I think we're going to end up going this route with it, because it just makes more sense. And
Before you do that, are you willing to take a look at SimPro to see how it stacks up against these other softwares?
I am, but I can almost guarantee I don't think it's going to meet what I'm needing to do, because
Yeah.
for example, like this software allows us to create custom forms for our technicians to fill out, as far as like how things are connected. And there's a lot of AV stuff that's been built in that you just
Right.
aren't going to find in another software suite. So,
It's more so selfishly for me because I want your opinion on it, because
Gotcha.
from my perspective, it meets a lot of the needs that would have it would have fulfilled a lot of needs that I had when I was in the field working for an integration company.
yeah.
But I would like your perspective on it. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be like a 20, 30-minute demo. I want you to be like, oh, hey, this looks good, or this looks like dog shit. I want
Yeah.
like the Mason boards like kind of like running through the ringer, because
Yeah.
I trust your opinion.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but also their company, I think, has over like 600 employees. And then looking at, Project X or Projects 360, and then iPoint has 16 employees according to LinkedIn, and then Project X has 7 employees.
Yeah.
So my concerns with that is like, are they going to be able to iterate quick enough to meet the requirements in the future, and like all the information security? Are they doing proper penetration testing? Like, are they going to get hit with a ransomware attack, 2 years down the road?
Yeah.
So I always look at like the company's size as like a measuring stick, whether or not they're going to be successful in the future.
Yeah, and I mean that's a question that I meant to ask Doug today, but I didn't get around to. I kind of forgot to ask him about that security
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, I mean that was my biggest concern with iPoint, is they're saying you're going to host this, and then we'll back it up for you. And I'm just like,
Red flag.
I don't really think that's. And I called a couple other integrators that used it, and they're like, oh yeah, it has its flaws, but it's pretty good, and self-hosting's fine, and we got a nice big server. And I'm just like, hey, that's not the way any of this is moving.
Right.
So it used to be that way, but nowadays it's like it looks just like a lack of keeping up with the times.
Yeah, that's not going to last. I mean, don't they have to communicate with like the field service technicians?
So they've built an app. Well, they use the FileMaker app that then they've developed within. So then you can, yeah, I don't know.
No.
A lot of business, like niche business apps, run in FileMaker apparently, but that's fine if that's the case, but I just don't think that that's the right development platform.
Yeah. When I was talking with SimPro and they did a demo for me, I had a few questions around proposals, because
Yeah.
I used to do the proposals and do like the AutoCAD drawings and try to make it look pretty for the customer before they were even a customer. And you go above and beyond that. And I was referencing you. I was like, well, this guy, he puts together these proposals and they look amazing. And like this would be like what it would have to look like.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm curious what your thoughts on Simpro would be.
So D-Tools Cloud. So D-Tools is like the Mac Daddy of AV proposals. They've been around since the 90s. Like
Yeah.
they're the ones that really made the proposal a thing, in my opinion, with AV companies. So they came out with this new cloud quoting software, and it is badass. And I wish that it could be duplicated into something like Projects 360, or it could be like there could be API calls so that I could develop in D-Tools Cloud and then push that proposal items over. Now,
Right.
the issue becomes is D-Tools Cloud wants to make a full project management suite. And so they don't want to integrate with projects. So it's interesting, but they haven't developed it yet. So they're kind of in this like catch 22. One of the coolest things that I liked about the D-Tools is that you could send your proposal via URL, and then it was basically like an interactive web page. Your proposal was. So what was really cool about that is if you put optional ads or changes in there. So like you said, okay, I'm going to quote you a base sound bar that's $1,000, and I'm going to put in there an option to upgrade it. So it's an additional $500 to upgrade to the $1,500 one. You could just click those changes in every room that you wanted, and it would automatically update the total. And then you would see that total, and the photos would change in the proposal, and then you could just sign it and pay it for it right there.
Yeah.
And that was so slick. But they said the amount of developers D-Tools has working on that is insane. But
Right.
it also integrates with ADI. Like it pulls pricing right from ADI, and you just log in with your account, and it pulls all that product over. Does that with Snap, with Control 4, with
wow.
Martin, Harman.
Wow.
And so then you could start typing in something, and it's pulling your exact pricing, so you don't have to go look anywhere. And then you just plop it in, and they'll have like 6 different photos you can pick from, and it has all the documents that you can attach within the proposal. It's fan fucking tastic.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I was like, if you can't work within a project management, then what good is that? Because okay, great, I can create the proposal, but then I'm basically gonna have to do double data entry.
It's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where Simpro closes that gap. They're a full suite, and they integrate with QuickBooks on the accounting side. But when you do the proposal, like everything flows all the way to the project management side, and then the field
Do they have
service
inventory?
technician. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Because if they don't have inventory, it's dead. It's dead. There's no point.
I can't remember what from the demo. I'm gonna set up a demo with you.
Okay. I'd be curious.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I need questions like this for them. Cool. Next item. We're gonna move on from the project management stuff. That's some good information. Things to think about. We're gonna wrap up with the cable tray stuff because we are nearing our time together, Mason. And I wanted to, because there was a question in Slack about the cable trays, how you quote it out or how you do it. Talk to me about this recent project that you just did.
So it's interesting. The one thing that I've kind of learned, and I'm by no means an expert in this, but when someone goes, well, how much do you charge for cable tray? You're asking a question that does not have an answer. And if someone does have an answer, it's
wrong.
It's wrong because you have to look at your costs. It's the same reason why Marco's price for installing a camera is going to be different than my price. We may make the same amount of money, but we may be drastically different prices because he's in a totally different market. He has totally different overhead than me. He may have a totally just everything's different. So you cannot put a price on that. You have to look at how much does this cost me and how much am I wanting to make? And then you have to apply that. So instead you should be asking, what margin should I shoot for on this? Mm-hmm. It's a commercial job. That's the question you should be asking, not how much should I be charging? Because if we say, okay, a great example and a pet peeve of mine is people that say, well, we charge $250 per drop. No, stop. That's not the right answer. The right answer is look at what you're installing. So when you actually start looking at proper project management, you actually realize that you have to quote out every little piece and item that you feel like you're going to need and properly plan out the project, from how many J hooks you're going to need to how many feet of cable to how much Velcro and label tape and all these things. You actually have to think about all of that stuff. You can't just, because if you just shoot in the dark and go, okay, it's going to be roughly this amount of money for it, your business will fail. It will fail unless you have a customer that just doesn't care and you can overcharge to the point where you just make money. So, long story short, the answer is you need to figure out how much margin you want. That doesn't mean markup. So, there's a difference between markup and margin. Markup is the percentage over what your cost is. And then the margin is the difference between your cost and how much you're selling it for. So a margin of 50%, if an item costs $100 and you're charging $200 for it, you have a margin of 50%, but you have a markup of 100%. So that's a big difference there. And it's been interesting because people don't seem to realize that. They go, oh, it's saying I have a 50% margin on it, but then when they do the Excel spreadsheet, they're putting 100% in. And so that's a difference between a markup and a margin.
Right.
So usually your margin, you would want to be anywhere at a minimum of 10% and maybe like a maximum of 50%, but it really depends on your market. There's some markets where 70% is good and dandy and 10% is okay. But it depends. You also have to look at how much your labor cost is and what your overhead is. So these are all factors that you have to start to understand before you can properly quote a job. Because if you're just shooting in the dark, which is fine to do in the beginning, but you shouldn't be doing 3 years into your business by any means.
Yeah. So yeah, the original question was, how do you price cable tray? Is there a rule of thumb? And I think you kind of answered it. Like,
take all your material, you put it into a spreadsheet, and then you mark it up. And then you go, how much labor is this going to take me to install? And then you go, okay, if I think it's going to take 2 weeks, just double it because it's going to take you longer. And then start there. And you submit that. And the thing is yes, there's always going to be times where you go, you know what, even though I think I need to charge $20,000, I know that my competitor is going to charge 15. And if you really want the business, you charge 14 and you win the business and you prove to the customer that you can do the best job. And then you can just slowly creep that price back up to where you need it to be to maintain your business. Because at the end of the day, if someone understands your skills and you submit a price that's more than what everyone else is, but you are kind of recognized as the top in your league, then the customer will understand if you explain to them, I have a certain amount of money that I have to make on the products and services that I sell, and I've determined it's this amount of money, and I can't do business for anything less than that. And that's it. That's at the end of the day, you have to determine that, and you have to figure out what works for you. And go from there. And of course, you can learn from other people. I mean, I had no idea that charging $150 an hour per technician was an acceptable rate, but I go see Josh do that all the time. So clearly it's something that's acceptable in some markets, but if I go do that here, I would get shot. So but his market is able to bear that, whereas my market may only bear 65 to 75 an hour per tech for cable pulling, but for programming we'll bear 150 all day. So but like Josh will go and charge 250 an hour. My market doesn't really bear that, at least for my business. So,
do you ever do you ever do projects like go way below what you normally would do just so you get the experience and like kind of put it on your resume or your portfolio? Is that kind of one of your
I mean, all the time. If you a great tactic is to come in below what you think everyone else would be. So even if it's something that you can knock out of the park. So let's say it's perfect example is you'll go and you'll spend $4,000 on some business expense, right? You'll go and you'll spend this money. You'll go, okay, that was great investment. But what if when you quoted out a project for maybe a new customer, a customer with a lot of business potential, that you did that at cost or like close to it, not to almost like make sure you get your foot in the door, and then you'd slowly turn the heat up as you continue to win business with them to get you back up to where you need to be, because then that allows you to get your foot in the door. It's almost like a marketing thing. that you're spending money on marketing to this customer that you can do a good job.
Right.
So you're maybe breaking even on the job, but you're investing into that customer in a roundabout way. So then that way you get your
Right.
foot in the door, and then you just slowly turn the dial back up, so to speak, to where you need to be. Now, that is one way to do it when you're starting out. And then once you've developed a name for yourself, then you can almost walk in and just name your price and say, this is where I'm at. And people will have almost inherently more respect for that if they know you from other places. But if no
Yeah.
one knows you, then you have to go in at such a low factor that like when I look back at my quotes, I did an 8 camera system quote for a manufacturing facility that took me a week for $4,000. $4,000. That, like, my cost on just the cameras and all the equipment was 3,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it was a unified camera system. So, sometimes you have to you don't know what you don't know, and that's fine. That's how you learn, and that's how you get better at it. But when you go, oh, how much should I quote that? You put your material in a list, you put your labor in a list, you mark it up, and you send it to the customer.
Right.
That's all
Yeah.
there is to it.
Just make sure you take good pictures of the
Yeah.
final product and put it
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, your website, and Twitter, and all that, so
Yep.
the next customer can see it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the
And
thing.
then it feels good when the customer texts you and says, "Wow, you guys are doing like a really nice job in here."
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys like keep your shirts tucked in, or kind of present well?
Yep.
Are you guys a bunch of like stinky like roughnecks, or what?
No,
do you
no,
enforce like, hey man, you got to clean your truck out and you got to
Yeah.
tuck your shirt in at least like when
Fridays.
you get there?
Yep, Fridays are clean the truck out, but I would say we have one of the most organized clean vehicles on the job
We
site.
got to do a mini episode on that, like a show
Yeah.
and tell. I love the
Yeah.
show and tell episodes.
Yeah, that'd be great. We
Yeah.
spent a lot of time on the van, but we're working on the warehouse really hard right now. I mean, we're going through it and reorganizing and putting together a whole labeling system as far as like aisles and shelves and bins, and
You
so
you're barcoding stuff
everything's
too.
getting a barcode. Everything's
Yes,
getting a
that's
barcode.
awesome.
There's policies that we're working on writing as far as like when we're going to do color coding on conduit cutoffs and cable boxes, so that you can look at a box and know roughly a range of how much cable's in it, and then it'll
Yeah.
get organized in the warehouse. And yeah, it's cool. It's that 95-5 rule. When you do 90% of businesses do 95% right. It's the 1% that do the other 5 that do 100% right.
That's what I'm
That is
talking
the
about.
difference between good and great. And we really are trying to do that 5%, but it's damn hard. So,
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that gets me excited.
Woo woo.
Yes, sir. So to wrap up the cable tray stuff,
Yeah.
any particular anything like any gotchas on this, or any like words of wisdom around like what you accomplished here?
Really plan it out and have a really good understanding of how you're going to mount it. So like one thing that we decided to do was trapezes to mount the cable tray. And so it's 2 pieces of all thread that hang vertically down with a piece of unistrut below it that's bolted in.
Right.
Now it's attached to what's called a purlin above it. Now there's 2 purlins, and one is at one height and the other one's is slightly above it. So it's at an angle because it's attached to the roof line. So one thing we had to solve in all that was how to get everything to sit level. So there's another piece of strut above the cable tray that spans both purlins that's level, that then the whole trapeze is attached to with another piece with unistrut. And then so that was expensive, but that all had to be planned out ahead of time. So the other thing is you have to look at stability of the tray. So if you're hanging it all from all thread, it's just going to be a big swing set, and you get a lot of cable on there. If it starts moving, you get a lot of momentum. So you have to look at, okay, how are we going to secure this? How are we going to attach it? You need to call the manufacturer and look at how much load you need. I think Chuck did a great video on you need to support every 5 foot with cable tray at a minimum. It's 2 to 5 feet spacing on that, but I think cable fill allows you to go up to 6 feet. But you need to look at how much cable you're going to have on that tray. Because your pounds per square foot is going to matter. You can get all the way up to, I think, like 100+ pounds per square foot that it can withstand if you have enough supports, or it'll drop all the way down to 55 pounds. So a box of Cat 6 cable, like 1,000-foot box, is roughly 40 pounds, I think. So I mean, just think about that. That's 40. A box is pretty heavy. If you have that every foot, which is about the width of a box, you can get a lot of weight on a cable tray. So just really think about that and how you're going to lay it out. And then the next thing is where all this comes together. You're going to have service loops. So you need to make sure you have a bigger piece of tray where your rack is going to go, so you can have your service loops on the cable tray. So for us, we did 1-foot cable tray for the kind of the main drag area, and then when it got to the IDF location, it went up to a 2-foot tray, so we could have service loops that weren't in the pathway of the cable, and then it would flow down into the conduits. So we'll be posting more pictures on LinkedIn as we finish this up, but it's a handful of miles of cable that we've been pulling on this tray. It's taken them. We had one guy combing and velcroing for 6 days, all the cable. So,
as I was typing in BIT Inc. on LinkedIn, you said you'll post more on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I'm looking at it right now. It looks like you already posted some good pictures. So that's a good place for people to see your work.
Yeah.
Would you say that's more up to date than your website?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, that's just how it goes, because WordPress and Squarespace and Wix are a pain in the ass to update, and social media, you get more engagement, and it's a better place to put your shit.
Yeah, we're working on that. That's after we get all the inventory and the project management figured out, then we're going to go back to the website. So
who cares about the website? I've just kind of like chalked it up as a whatever.
Yeah.
Social media is better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would like a nicer landing page. It looks a little outdated. The thing is, we have a lot of residential customers that look at it and go, "So you do home automation, but it's not on your website?" Like, yeah, it's a little old.
See, yeah, that's the thing. People still go to websites.
Yeah,
people forgetting that.
They want to research you. If you're going to be in their house, they want to research you. So
as they should.
As they should.
Yeah. But you can just lie on the internet. I mean, like, don't believe everything. Like, talk to other people. And I think social media can paint a little bit better picture, because you can kind of drill into like more specific things.
Blake's life.
You can, yeah. You can look at that. I keep everything wide open, because I want people
wide, a little too wide.
I want people to know who I really am.
We got that when you went to Vegas the first time.
The first time. Second time was kind of just chill.
Yeah, it's more relaxed.
Yeah, it's like putting on a suit, like polishing a turd, you know? It's just like people have their LinkedIn profiles, and it's just like, I don't know, man.
I wish more people were on it, because I know you were getting on me like, you're not on LinkedIn, got to get on LinkedIn. I was like, I don't get it. And now I get it. It's.
You wish more people were on it? There's tons of people on it. What are you talking about?
I wish there was more engagement, because like, so I reach out to people, but it seems like people make LinkedIn as like, this is my resume, and then they just never get on it again.
Right, there's that.
It's a little disappointing.
It's good because it allows people like you and I that understand the benefit to really leverage it and rise above. Get in front of people. It's awesome. Cool, man. What's on the horizon for you, Mason? Next 2 weeks.
Project management. Did I mention project management? Because I'm kind of working on project management.
And then it ties into like your organization of like your warehouse, and like just like really tightening things up is what you're doing.
I presume we're going to be working on this for the next 6 to 8 months to get a really good, well-oiled machine done. So
I always give things like this a year. I just say a year to be really thriving with a new system. Like to implementation takes about 6 months. It's like pretty common for like enterprise software, healthcare software. So, and then like thriving with it, like 6 months after that, you're like, boom, now we really know how to use it.
Yeah. Software is a magical thing. It's something that I didn't appreciate enough until I really started to understand what the hell I was doing in business. I still don't understand, but I understand better now. And wow, it is just incredible how much software makes a difference. So
that's why I want your opinion on SimPro, because I want to be able to recommend people like you, like good software, because I've never had that before in this industry. I can recommend electronic health records because that's kind of my like what I used to do, but
Yeah.
I've never found good software that focuses on like the service technician. Like I want the technician to have like what they need to get the job done and not get in the way of their job.
I think it'd be interesting once I get further into it, if we decide that we actually really like it, is to have Doug on the podcast, because Doug likes to talk. So I think that'd be an interesting one. If
So
I end up really
I
liking
can sit
it.
back and chill. Doug can talk.
Yeah, Doug can talk. So we got to get Brian on from Phoenix, and then we got to get Doug on,
Brian
maybe.
Matthews.
Yep, Brian
Doug.
Matthews.
And then Doug Greenwald. And then we talked about, you mentioned Chuck real quick. Chuck loves to get on the podcast. So maybe, I think that might be a cool, you guys can kind of talk shop on the structured cabling side.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Dope. I love Chuck. Cool, man. Well, it's good talking to you, Mason. I have to go. Like, I'm late. So I got to go.
I think you're an hour late, actually, to be specific.
No, I'll be late when I get there. But I have 6 minutes to get across town. Pack up all my shit and go.
Yeah.
We taking some photos, baby. You'll see it on Instagram.
Yep, I'll see it.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
See you. Bye.
Bye.